Okay, we come to the last part of chapter 13 regarding challenges to our understanding of leaderships. The challenges is regarding whether we need leaders or not in the organization. So much of the organization's success or failure is due to factor outside the influence of leadership. So in other words, what is meant here is we do not need a leader in order to be effective in performing our jobs or in increasing our performance. So according to the attribution theory of leadership, this theory indicates that leadership is just an attribution people make about other individual, like we tend to attribute other individual, for example, doctors to have certain characteristics, certain traits, and also lawyers to have certain characteristic traits that they possess. So basically, leaders also, we attribute leaders to possess certain characteristic. For example, we tend to attribute leaders to have intelligence, outgoing personality, strong verbal skill, aggressiveness, understanding, and industriousness. So other kind of positions such as lawyers, doctors, engineers, accountants, they also, people tend to attribute some characteristics also to them as similar as leaders. There are certain characteristics that normally people attribute to them. At the organizational levels, leaders tend to be considered as a responsible for positive and also for the negative performance. So they can be the cause for both either good performance or bad performance. So data from neural study indicates that the action of leaders is actually irrelevant. So whatever actions of the leaders is actually irrelevant to the performance, to the organizations. So experience and training actually can be used as a substitute to replace the needs for the leaders. So employees have been given enough training and maybe to develop the experience, so they actually do not need leaders. So and at the organizational level, organizational characteristics such as goals, rigid rules and procedure, cohesive work groups actually can replace the formal leadership in the organization. So in other words, leaders can be replaced by giving employees more trainings and more experience, or if the organization are characterized by formalized goal or their rules and procedures are rigid, and also their work groups are cohesive. So if this kind of characteristics been given to the organizations or been adopted by the organizations, and if employees are being given enough training experience, this actually are good enough to replace the need for the leaders. So selecting leaders it is important to identify effective leaders. Effective leaders are considered very important. Effective leaders, it is important to identify the effective leaders. If many organizations, they just want to hire leaders without without giving specific requirements for the positions. So according to the textbook, in order to select the leaders, need to first identify the effective leaders, such as in terms of knowledge, in terms of skill and abilities that needed to do the job effectively. And consider, in order to select the leaders, it is important to consider their to consider personality tests. That means asking individual who maybe have to fulfill the position of leaders to take some personality test. This personality test is to identify leadership traits, because according to the study, throughout the slide I have mentioned some traits such as extraversion, conscientiousness, and openness to experience are very important for the leadership roles. And leadership role also need high emotional intelligence, and this consider very important if the positions or if the situation in the organization require transformational leadership style. And in other things that important to be considered when selecting leaders is to look at a specific situational specific experience. That means leaders need to have situational specific experience. Experience, even though experience itself is a poor predictor of leader effectiveness, but the specific situational experience is very relevant because specific to the situations that may happen in the organizations is very important, so that leader be able to show how to overcome certain problem is happen again. So plan for, let's say, for if let's say if, for example, the organization have to find or to elect a new managers, or need to reshuffle their top management and who need to be hired. So plan for a change in leadership is very important, because sometimes when the leaders are retired or when the leaders resign, organizations sometimes they want to fill in the position of leaders in no time. They didn't do much of the checking the leader's background, or the person who want to fill in the leader's position background. They just want to fill in the position that been left by the previous leader. So that's why no surprise when the new leader come in, they turn out to be a poor leader. So it is important for the organizations to plan for a change in their leadership, especially to check the background, to select leaders with the certain traits that are desirable for having good leadership roles. And it is important also to train a leader. So leaders is not only being born, leaders also need to be trained. Training leaders are very important to maximize the effect from leadership budget, especially can maximize if the organization have more budget in terms of trainings. So leadership training is likely to be more successful with high self-monitors. So high self-monitors, they believe in themselves. They believe in their abilities. So those who have high self-monitor characteristics should be given leadership training, because this will this actually found out to be more successful with them. And also, it is important to train leaders by teaching implementation skills such as trust building, mentoring, and situational analysis skill. These are considered implementation skill. And also to provide some behavioral training. When we talk about behavioral training, we talk about modeling exercises. Modeling exercises is not like a normal modeling, but instead the leaders need to be given trainings how to imitate or how to learn from the successful leaders. For example, if they watch some trainings or behavioral modelings regarding successful leaders in terms of how the leaders inspire, how the leaders motivates, and how the leaders use their intonations, how the leaders use their gesture, body language, and so on. This kind of behavior training actually can improve individual to become good leaders. And also, especially behavioral training is actually important in developing individual charismatic leadership qualities. And review leaderships, and the organization also need to review leadership after key organizational event. For example, sometimes the organization have key event. For example, they have certain seminar or talks, or so this actually for the organization to review whether the leadership that they have in the organization actually effective or not. So it is important for the organization to train to provide training in terms of transformational leadership trainings, because transformational leadership trainings especially is very important. According to the research, it could lead to effectiveness or to have bottom line results. Okay, that's it.